Hi there, welcome to the first Premiere Pro tutorials video with me, Ruben Robinson. Throughout this series, we're going to be looking at some of the basic features of Premiere Pro, like starting a project and how to edit simple content. Throughout the series, we'll also be looking at more complex features, like how to use proxies to edit your films. In this particular video, we're going to be looking at how to start an initial project from scratch. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. Okay, let's get started. So to get started with Premiere Pro, firstly you need to open the program up. So if it's not down here in your recent applications in your toolbar, then go up in the top right here, search bar, and type in something like Prem, and it should pop up there. Now you can also find this in your Launchpad, or if you go on your Finder and Applications, it should be on there as well if it's installed. So I'm just going to click that version, so it comes up with this loading window here, and it has this image of this circus and a tent here, which is quite nice. So as soon as that loads, it will bring up this window here. This window will allow you either to create a brand new project or open a previous project, and your previous projects will be listed here. We're going to create a brand new project today, so I'm going to click that. So here's the name, so you can name the project whatever you want. I'm going to call this Project 1, but that would traditionally be whatever your project's called. Location is where this project is going to be saved, so I'm going to click Browse and Customize that destination, and I'm going to put it on the desktop, I think. So I'm going to click Choose. Now in General Settings, here you can change your video rendering and playback, so you can change your GPU accelerator. Traditionally it will Premiere Pro will know which one will work best for the software, so I'll leave that the same. And these as well, you can change the display format for your audio and video, so you can go from timecode to frames for your video, and in audio you can go from milliseconds to audio samples. I'm not going to change any of them. In Scratch This, these are files which are created to make your Premiere project run more smoothly. So you've got captured video, captured audio, captured previews, audio previews, and each one of these does a different thing. For example, video previews within Premiere, if you decide to pre-render any of your footage, it will save them into a separate folder there, and you can decide and you can customize where you want that to be saved. CC libraries download, again, anything you download from the CC libraries which is connected to your project or for that project, it will save it in a place of your own destination. You can click that and customize the destination. 99% of the time I keep all these as same as project, just so that all these files are all in the same place, so I know where they are. Ingest settings, if you are shooting with very high quality footage, raw footage, ProRes footage for example, your computer may not be able to cope with processing that footage, and the software won't be able to cope either. So therefore you can click Ingest and you can create proxies. And creating proxies will allow you to import your pure uncompressed footage, and it will duplicate this footage and turn them into smaller files here, which are these, and it will actually edit from these files so your computer can cope with the heavy footage. When you export, it will then use the pure footage, the heavy footage, so you get the high quality. So you're editing the high quality footage without your computer suffering, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're not going to use ingest for now. We're just going to keep it pretty simple. So we're going to click OK to that. Okay, I'm just going to hide this for now, but as you can see, it's created my project here, and it's already created two other folders already called Premiere Pro Captured Audio and Premiere Pro Captured Video there. So I'm just going to go back on the project, and it will give you this window here or something like this. Now this is called a workspace, and you can customize these workspaces from here. So it gives you these presets here. So if I click on color, the workspace has been designed to help with color. If I go on to something like libraries, this has been created to help you sort your libraries out. And yeah, there's different things, production as well, which is the best for production apparently, the workspace. But you can also customize each one by dragging each panel as well. So I've dragged that panel there, or I can drag that down there, and I can drag these to wherever I want to make it as easy as possible, because everybody works differently, so you may want to customize your own workspace. Now I'm going to click on all panels because I want all my panels to be shown up, just so it makes this easier. And I'm now going to go through each panel. So this panel here is an important panel. This is called the project panel, and the project panel is where all your assets is going to be put, so your audio files, your video files, etc. And in here you can create folders. So the folders are called bins. So you just go on here and you put in something like footage, and that's where your footage is going to go. You can create a new bin, and you can do something called like audio, and that's where all your audio will go. And if you click on that, double click, it will create a little folder, subfolder thing up here. Okay, here is where your timeline would usually go, or your sequences. Sequence, timeline, same thing. Here is your cut panel, so when you click on a bit of footage you can cut it here and then drag it into your timeline. And here is your preview screen. On the screen here, this section here, this is your effects panel. So it's got info, it's got all your effects, it's got your essential graphics, and it's got quite a lot on this panel. It's quite an important panel. If there is something within this workspace which isn't here, which you need, a panel which you need, you can click on window and all your panels are here. So you can click learn, and then my learn panels come up. Now I'm just going to tick that off. Okay, let's import some footage. So here I've got my footage folder here, so I'm going to double click there. The easiest way to import footage is to back click, click import. I'm going to go on my desktop, footage, and there's my footage there, and I can simply click import, and now it's importing my footage in there. If I double click, it'll bring it into my cut, and I can cut my footage within there. Another way of importing footage is if you go into your Finder and you find your footage, you can actually just drag and drop in. So I've drag and dropped, and that is there. I'm going to delete that because that's a duplicate. Another way of doing it, now those two are the two easiest ways, but there is another one called Media Browser. If I bring up my Media Browser, set window, and if I find Media Browser, oh, it is there. Oh, Media Browser's here, look. So bring up Media Browser, I can do all of that, but do it within the program, and this is probably one of the best ways of doing it. It's a slower process, but it's the best way of doing it because you're doing it throughout the whole program rather than going from Finder to the program. You're doing it all within the program, so it's less likely to make mistakes. Next, what we need to do is we need to create a sequence, because we can't drop anything in here yet because we haven't created a sequence. So we're going to go on here, we're going to go on File, New, Sequence. And this window will pop up here, and here you have some of your presets, but the chance of a preset being in here in which you want is very unlikely. So I'm going to click Settings here, and I'm going to click on Custom, and I'm going to create a custom sequence. So here is your time base, they call it. This is your frames per second. So whatever you want to export your film out as the end, these should mostly be preset to what you want to export at the end. Now the footage which I've captured are in 25 frames per second because I'm in PAL land, which is the UK, Japan, most of Europe, where we shoot 25 frames per second or 50 frames per second. Now if you're in the US of A or Canada or Mexico, then you'll probably be using NTSC, so you'll probably be shooting either 24 frames per second, 30 or 60, and you can pick that there. I'm going to pick 25 for now. Now here you can pick your video pixels, so how many pixels are in your image. If you're shooting 1080p, it'll be 1920 by 1080. Oh, 1080. And that has a vertical, horizontal of 1920, vertical by 1080, and that is relevant to the amount of pixels, and that is a 16:9 ratio. Now the footage which I've got in here today is Ultra HD, so that's 3840 by 2160. But you customize this to how many pixels your frame size has in your footage. Next is the pixel aspect ratio. So this is what size pixels they are. Now traditionally most footage is going to be 1:1, so you pick one there. But if you're shooting on DV cam or anamorphic, then you have presets for them as well, anamorphic, DV cam, etc. We're going to use the square pixel. Fields is quite important. If you're shooting on DV cam, quite a lot of the time you're shooting something called 1080i, which is interlace, and therefore you'll want to use upper field first, which is the interlace. If you're using progressive, which is what most modern cameras shoot at, then you want to use progressive scan there. Display format, again, 25 frames per second timecode, that's fine. You can change this to frames again, but I'm going to keep that as timecode. Sample rate of audio is 48,000 Hertz, that's fine. Display format is audio samples, again, you can change that to milliseconds. I'm going to change it to milliseconds. Video previews, this is the type of footage you're going to use to preview your image, and usually it's slightly lower quality to what you're shooting at. So here you can pick whatever format you want. So I'm going to choose this one here. This one works quite well for me. If you go for something like a 12-bit or a 10-bit, these are usually quite heavy. So unless you have quite a beefy machine and you want to view the 12-bit or the 10-bit live throughout your preview screen, then make sure you have quite a beefy computer with a good graphics or CPU inside, otherwise it will struggle to play that. I'm going to go for this here, that's fine. And again, the preview file format is going to be at a smaller scale, just to make the program run the footage slightly easier. Here I can change the maximum bit rate, depth as well, and the maximum render quality. I'm not going to change that for now, because if I click this, it will warn me that it will take up a lot of memory if I change the bit depth now, but it's something which I can do before I export the final film, so I'm going to tick that off for now. Now if I want to save this as a preset, I can click Save Preset to use this later, and I can call this preset A, click that OK, and it will save it in my custom presets once they load at the bottom here. So I've made one there already, and there's going to be another one, that's the one I've just made, the preset A. Okay, and here is where you change the name of your sequence. So you can call this sequence whatever you want, and you can create as many sequences with different frame rates, different ratios, whatever you want. So I'm going to call this SEQ1, but again you can create as many as these as you want. I'm just going to create one for now. Okay, and there's my sequence there. Now that allows me to click on my footage, and it allows me to drag footage onto my timeline. When I first do this, it's saying that there's something called a clip mismatch warning. This is because in my sequence settings, they don't match with the footage which has been imported. So I can either click change sequence settings, in which it will change the sequence settings to match the footage completely, which is not something you necessarily want. If you're confident that you clicked the right settings while creating the sequence, then you want to click this here, keep existing settings. And there you go, that is imported that in there. Okay, and that is how you first set up your Premiere Pro project. Again, your sequence is in here, and if you want to, if you have many sequences, you can create a new bin here with the sequences there, and you can drag that in there and have yours double click and have all your sequences in here. Another good tip is, if you get revisions on a sequence, you can actually back click on here and duplicate this, and it will duplicate the whole timeline, and you can rename this SEQ2 or SEQ3, for example. Okay, that's it guys. To help us bring you more content, please support us by subscribing to our channel.